CISO Choice Awards Vendor Recognition with Richard Stiennon.
Hi, I'm Richard Stiennon, and welcome to another executive interview for the CISO Choice Awards with one of the winners, Black Kite, and Paul Paget, who is CEO of Black Kite. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Richard. Very excited to be here again.
Yep, that's right. Congratulations are definitely in order, but let the audience know, who the heck is Black Kite?
Yeah, Black Kite is trying to change the game in security ratings, and by actually making it useful, not just a rating. And
right.
That seems to resonate. And we've added some cool capabilities that make it much easier to have good visibility into your supply chain and your third parties, and actually be able to do things about it if you see problems. So that's a very simple way we approach this.
Yeah, and I like the simple way you message it. You did use third party eventually, but you don't say we're third party risk management. So what's the difference between what you do in the field of third party risk management, which are scoring solutions for the most part?
Right. Well, the key is it's cyber risk, right? And it's to do that, we try to work with the companies that are doing financial and geopolitical and the other forms of risk and partner with them. But cyber risk is the elephant in the room. It's the thing that changes constantly. You know, financial measures change on a monthly basis. Cyber can change day to day or minute to minute in some cases. And so it's very important that you have high-speed capabilities, continuous monitoring, and a system that's automated, so that when stuff goes off out of band from where you think it should be, people get notified, not just you but your third parties, your fourth parties, people that you depend on. And as you know, today, companies are the brands that we all know are made up of hundreds, in some cases thousands. We have one customer that is monitoring over 10,000 of their partners and suppliers today, because they're highly dependent on those suppliers. And it's a big brand name that you'd all recognize, but you don't think of what's behind those brands are many, many companies and smaller companies that have a lot to do with delivering the quality of service that we expect from the brands that we like.
I like the continuous part of it because, for years I've talked to enterprise cyber risk management solutions that, track all of your assets they can find and all your vulnerabilities and give you a score. And then it's supposed to be something to work towards reducing that score, right? Reduce your overall risk over time. And I always ask them, okay, what happens when a log4j is announced and all of a sudden I want to see that score just jump and skyrocket, right? And then you work it down again. And quite often it's a very, very slow cycle to determine that. How does Black Kite integrate, all those things that could change those scores?
It's well, there's a couple. Let me unpack this question a little bit, because when log4j hit, most of the people in the marketplace can only detect it if they ask questions of their third parties, and that takes a long time to get the answers, because the people you're asking the questions to may not know whether they're impacted by it. And so one of the things we've done is to figure out how to detect those things within hours, and so that you're not dependent on asking people if they're impacted by it, and then you can take some action. And so that's really the key here. How we do things is we really look at the rating is really just a kind of a window into a big maze of things behind the rating, right? And what not all ratings are created equal. Some people are trying to have ratings just to have ratings. It's kind of a piece of wallpaper, but the reality is, if you don't have the intel behind it, it's no good. And we've worked really hard to make sure that we can capture everything possible on a non-intrusive basis. And that's the secret to our success, is the data behind what we produce. And people have said to us, you have 3 to 4 times the data of your competitors, It's not just more data, but we can corroborate data, so it's accurate. You can rely on it, and you can take action based on quality data, and that's really the key, is the data. The ratings will go up, they'll go down. They're indicators of what might be behind the curtain, but what's behind the curtain is what really matters. And if you can zero in on that, like a Log4j or an Okta, or maybe you have assets in a war zone, anything like that, you need to know right away, because your business may be impacted by it.
What I really like about what you're telling me is that it's a path to making the entire ecosystem more secure. And despite, like the government, CISA, and the NIST, and now the White House, spend a lot of time just telling people to do better, right? They get another group that say there's a new vulnerability, you should go patch, and but the people who need to hear that never hear that message, right? If you're a ice manufacturer in Detroit, I always think of this as an example, you're not watching the news for things from NIST, right? And so it never occurs to you. But if your biggest customer calls you up and says, hey, your risk score is way too high, we're not going to do business with you unless you do X, Y, and Z, you do it. It's like the only motivation you need is a customer that tells you you've got to do it. And I'm in Detroit, so it harps back to when, Ford made quality job number one. And they started selecting vendors based on whether they're ISO 9001 compliant. And that was, it's just a certification. It was a bunch of paperwork, but they really did push quality all the way down to the supplier base. And I'm really excited by what you're doing, because it does just that.
Well, there's another part to that story, which I'm sure is they also let the people on the line stop the line if they didn't like what was happening.
That's
and
right.
that was a revolutionary idea at the time.
Totally.
Now, when we talked, and it worked. Now, when we talked to CISOs about, can you stop the line when you see a vendor, and I'd say, based on the ones we talk about, half say yes and half say no. Half are there to offer their weigh in on with their opinion. The other half actually have been given the authority because their boards and their CEOs understand the importance of what they're trying to do. And that's what makes the CISO job so difficult, is they have to make a game time decision as to whether they're going to interfere with business. The other thing that we see happen increasingly now is it's at where they have the most leverage across the board is at the time of contract. New contract or RFP or renewal. And that's where this stuff really comes to bear, because that's when you have a chance to kind of set the table on what the expectations are. If it happens with a vendor that's already in motion with you, a lot of people will look the other way, because maybe the vendor relationship is strong. Maybe they've done a good job overall, and you're there trying to say, hey, but wait a minute. And nobody wants to listen to that. So I love the Ford story.
Yeah. And one more part of that comes into play whenever we talk about the CISO's role in their reporting structure is that quality in every manufacturing plant used to report to the plant manager. Plant manager was the captain of the ship. Everything he said. I don't know if there are ever any women in automotive, and as plant managers, I'm sure there were. But he would just veto the quality guys. So ship it. I'm not shutting my plant down. Every car out the door is 20,000 in revenue, and you stop me for a minute, and that's 20,000 lost. We'll never catch that minute back. So Ford actually took all those quality managers and made a report to a corporate quality manager and gave them the power to shut down the plant, and it changed everything. That's why I often argue that the CISO shouldn't report to the CIO, just report up beyond them.
And I think, it's a great parallel, because I'm a great believer in history, and it's a very good story that I think a lot of people should think about. And if those of us that were around this since then know how crappy their cars were, but how good they became and how strong a company they are today. And a lot of people that understand the Ford story know that it goes back to that story that you just told.
Totally. Totally. So if somebody is thinking of engaging with Black Kite, what's the implementation process look like? Because I've seen some very cumbersome ones. It's like, well, first call up all your suppliers and have them fill out this 100-page questionnaire. So walk me through what it was like for somebody with 10,000 suppliers.
Well, I can tell you that, and it is a very big brand name. It's in the Fortune, I think the Fortune 25. But basically they were very worried about their onboarding process, which, as you know, because of questionnaires and paperwork, can take weeks or months in some cases.
Yeah.
And so they were able to take their the total onboarding process from 6 to 8 weeks down to 6 to 8 hours. And it's a result of the automation. They can trust the data. Now, they're not sending out, if they see indications of issues, they'll follow up with questions and more investigation. But on first pass, the system gives them enough intelligence to make a decision up or down, or whether to investigate further. So, and then as far as the questionnaire process goes, we are releasing this quarter a new capability to actually just take a security policy and parse it, because we can actually ingest questionnaires and automatically parse them across 14 sets of controls. So we took that one step further, and we now can read any document, any file, PDF, doc, Excel sheet, and with the policies or whatever information, and machine read that and learn that and parse that using math across the 14 sets of controls. So we can literally take a 100-page policy, parse it, and fill it out across 14 sets of controls in less than 20 minutes. So
Nice.
That combined with the intelligence, that's what somebody says they do. And then we look at what we see that they do through the information we gather externally. And you get a really good picture as to whether they've got their act together or not.
Awesome. This is great. I want to thank you so much, Paul, from Black Kite, for introducing us to their solution. Thank you.
Thanks again, and thanks to your CISO community that honored us. We're very honored by that. We'll work hard for that, and our people are very proud of that. So thank you again.
Stay tuned for more from CISO's Connect.